Good evening. Welcome to the monthly business meeting of the Unified Government of Athens-Clarke County. Thank you for your attention and thank you for your interest in the proceedings of your local government. If you need an agenda tonight, they're on the table to the right of the doors as you go out. Those of you who are watching us remotely can get them from our website, Athens-Clarke-County.com. And if those of you in the audience tonight have an electronic device of some kind, please turn it off or to silent. We will now go into our monthly business meeting. There'll be several opportunities for citizen input. The first will be for items on our proposed consent agenda, which are items 1 through 8, and then items 7 through 9, which are listed under our old business. We'll also hold a public hearing on items from the Planning Commission, which are items 10 through 12. And each of those will have the public hearing, then we'll come behind the rail to discuss and dispose of that item, and then we'll go back to the public hearing. So that one's done a little bit differently. The rules of the commission, and I'll let you know as each of these opportunities is available too. The rules of the commission allow each speaker 3 minutes. There's a light on Ms. Spratlin's desk. It will turn yellow at 2.5 minutes, so please have your comments finished by the time it turns red so that I won't need to interrupt you. And we all ask you to please refrain from demonstrations and show consideration of people at the podium that you would expect if you were there. Ms. Spratt, would you call the roll for us, please?
Dickerson. Here. Sam.
Here.
Blink.
Here.
Wright.
Here.
Bailey.
Here.
Neesmith.
Here.
Bale.
Here.
Harrod.
Present.
Gertz.
Here.
Hamby.
Here.
We have 4.
Thank you, ma'am. I do have a motion for the approval of the minutes of January 5th, January 12th, and January 19th.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we will now go to our citizen input part of our agenda, and this will be on the consent agenda. So anyone who would like to speak to items 1 through 6, if you'd please approach the podium, tell us which item you're speaking to, and give us your name and address, please. Anyone wish to speak to those items? Okay, seeing none, we'll come behind the rail. Is there any commissioner who would like to remove anything from the consent agenda? Okay, do I have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move for adoption of the consent agenda.
Before we vote, I need to have Mr. Behrman read an ordinance for us.
An ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to parking restrictions on Reese Street and for other purposes.
Thank you. We have a motion. To have a second?
Second.
Have a motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
It was Jerry. Okay. Our consent agenda has been approved. And at this time, we would accept citizen input on items 7 through 9, which are listed under old business on our agenda. Would anyone like to speak to one of those items? If you do, please come to the podium. Got a quiet crowd tonight. Okay, we'll come behind the rail. I assume so. I think about wanting to talk to us has already sent us an email. So we'll come behind the rail now, and item number 7 is our application for the Go Transit grant funds for purchase of hybrid electric transit buses. Would anyone like to open the discussion on that? Ms. Link?
I'll move that we approve this.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Before you vote, let me make a point. At the place tonight is a printed copy of the agenda report. The addition that is different from the copy that was transmitted to you is history item number 5. We inadvertently left off the fact that we had presented this to the Citizens Oversight Committee, and they unanimously recommended that you take the action that's recommended tonight.
Thank
That
you.
will then become a part of the official record.
Thank you. I appreciate you letting us know, and that's, everybody has that on their desk tonight. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this might be a short meeting. We will now go to item number 8. Mr. Behrman, we have a couple of ordinances. Would you go ahead and read those?
I do, thank you. The first is an ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to taxicabs and for other purposes. The next is an ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to regulating bus and taxicab stand zones and parking spaces for persons with disabilities and for other purposes.
Thank you. And this item is the Legislative Review Committee's report on amendments to our taxicab and parking ordinances, and that's in Mr. Gertz's committee. Would you like to speak to that, Mr.
I will. We've had several meetings in which we've discussed this item, but since we're voting tonight, I just want to highlight a couple of key points. This ordinance, I think, is going to greatly enhance our taxi cab services for the safety and efficiency, both of the operators and of the users. This establishes a maximum fare structure for cab services in Athens, and there's a two-tiered arrangement. A metered tier is one of the options that a rider can choose. Meters will be required in taxi cabs from now forward if this is approved tonight. The second tier is a group tier if somebody's riding in a caravan of multiple riders. And for the caravan purpose, we've established a map with 3 zones that are roughly in concentric circles around the core of downtown. In addition, the rate card will be a required component of the interior of every cab, so a rider understands exactly what the fare structure is. A receipt has to be provided by the operator of the cab, and the cab operator must accept either cash or credit. There will also be the establishment of cab stands throughout the downtown area for more orderly onboarding and offboarding. Many of these are going to be in areas that by day are loading zones. Finally, for the functionality of the operators, dispatch can now be done from a remote location. Doesn't have to be done at a permanent brick and mortar 24-hour establishment, although there have to be announced hours for those brick and mortar locations for the purpose of claiming lost items and the like. And finally, no longer is there the requirement of having the sort of old traditional CB two-way radio, but communication can be done via cell phone.
Thank you, Ms. Kurtz. And for those that don't follow those committee meetings, this has been a lot of work that your committee's done. Thank you. Do we have a motion or any discussion, further
Motion for
discussion?
approval.
A second.
Have a motion second. Mr. Herod. You'd think after 4 years I wouldn't hesitate. 5 years.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I fully intend to support this, but I just have a couple of real quick nitpicky questions. So did I hear you correctly that a rider gets to choose whether they want to have the cab run on a meter or just pay the flat fare? Is that correct? Okay. And then under Section 6, where it talks about the times, it talks about on East Clayton Street that zones will be used as a parking space for persons with disability each day from 8 a.m. until 10 p.m. and being used as a taxi stand zone each day from 8 p.m. until midnight. So is there a 2-hour time period between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. where it is both a taxi zone and for persons with disabilities?
That's what the reading would lead me to believe.
And is that the intent?
I believe it is. Attorney Berryman, can you highlight this?
We checked with Mr. Horton at downtown parking, and he felt like there was not going to be any overlap there,
Okay.
since there are very few pickups in that zone during that 2-hour period.
Okay. And the final question, and this might have more to do with the legality than anything. So I've noticed on a number of the times it says from a certain time up until midnight and each day from 12:01 a.m. until 4 or whatever on the next day. Is there a reason for it being set up that way, that there's technically a minute between midnight and 12:01?
At midnight and 15 seconds, are we in compliance or not? Bill, can you respond to that?
I think that's, you picked up a minute gap there. We'll fix that.
Okay. That appears several times, and
Can
I'd
we
rather,
manage that just under Scrivener's
Sure, that'll
needs?
be a Scrivener's check.
okay. I'd rather just get it right than give somebody
Sure.
some wiggle room. Thank you.
Nobody could have ever seen that but you. Okay. Is
I
there
am
more
nothing
discussion
if not
before
a
we vote?
pedant.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we will now get to item number 9, which is our Hancock Community Development Corporation lease agreement. Is there anyone that would like to make a motion or open discussion on this item?
Just a quick word of discussion. I thought Mr. Sheets might have been here tonight. And this is just for a 1 year. The amount that we're talking about is just for 1 year. Is that not correct? To be
It's for-
revisited annually.
Actually, it's a 2-year provisions up to 3 1-year extensions.
Okay.
Either party could end it at any time with 90 days' notice.
Okay.
Anyone else? Have a motion?
A motion. Do we move forward on that? Let me get to the options. Hold on. Got ahead of myself. Options 1.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now we will go to our public hearing and deliberation on recommendations from the Athens Planning Department. All of these, each of these recommendations, as I explained earlier, will be dealt with one at a time, so I'll ask for public comment on an item, then we'll come behind the rail and take action on it, and then we'll go to the next item till we finish our Planning Commission recommendations. So we will start with item number, and there is an option for a longer time frame if someone signs up ahead of time for a 10-minute time frame, but we had no one sign up for 10-minute time frames tonight, so the normal 3-minute limitation will apply. And the first item is item number 10, which is a request from Jeff Carter Engineering Consultants as agents for Cornerstone Church of God for an amendment to their special use, the special use in RS-25. Mr. Behrman, you have an ordinance for us?
I do. An ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to amending the existing special use approval in the RS-25 single-family residential district on the approximate 42.99 acre tract of land located at 4680 Lexington Road and for other purposes.
Thank you. Ms. Dixon, this is your district. Would you like to comment on it? Or start? I'm sorry. I almost forgot all you guys sitting out there. Would anyone like to speak to this item? It's item number 10, which is the Cornerstone Church.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Carter with Carter Engineering Consultants representing Cornerstone Church tonight. And Cornerstone is, most of you may be aware, has not been a property very long. They built the building a little less than 2 years ago, I believe, and moved out to the new facility, and they quickly realized that they don't have enough parking. They have people coming and actually having people leaving comments in their comment box that we love the church, but there's no place to park. And I think there's a lot of different reasons for this. I will say I don't attend Cornerstone Church, but I have been really impressed with their ministry there. I kind of look at it like a campus really more than a traditional church because they have many, many functions going on simultaneously. They have an international ministry that meet during church. They have an older teen group that meets during church. They actually have, I was surprised and well surprised that they feed homeless people every Sunday in their church, and they have staff and people preparing the meals while the church service is going on. They also have multiple services on a Sunday, so you may have a church starting at 9 o'clock and then one starting at 10:30, and then you have an overlap there. So it's been a big problem for them really from the very beginning. It's unfortunate, but it's fortunate in that when you have this type of problem, it's a good thing. It means you're reaching the community and you know doing a good job there. So the only other thing I would point out is this is a large piece of property. It's not something that we're just hammering and adding the impervious area. The lot coverage is less than 13%. So it's got a lot of area there on their property. So that's really all I have to say. I hope you'll support this and allow the parking lot to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter, and I'm sorry I almost overlooked you. Would anyone else like to speak to this item?
Hey, good evening. I am Scott Shepard, the pastor at the Cornerstone Church, and I just wanted to say how much I appreciate your consideration. It has been an issue for us since the beginning. We're already in multiple services, and we have exhausted as many of the resources as we can exhaust in our current location. We believe it is something that will improve our capacity to continue to improve our community, and I just wanted to say thanks for your consideration and for what you guys do for us.
Thank you, Pastor. And for what it's worth, I'll tell you all, I have visited that church several times, and it's quite an impressive operation, and I'm really impressed with the fact that they feed, well, we say homeless people. I think you let anybody eat that shows up on Sundays, and I think that's an amazing ministry, so thank you all for doing that. And Sharon, this is your district. Would you like to?
Yeah, I haven't received any negative feedback. In fact, most of what I've received has been real positive from the community. The fact that it has enhanced the area, and I think they've been a good neighbor to the neighborhood next door. Again, I haven't heard anything bad, and I have been to the church a few times, and I know it's a young, vibrant church, and I think it's something that we should support. Go ahead.
Mr. Neesmith.
I just want to say, I was on the Planning Commission when this plan came before us, and I must say that the congregation and all of the principals involved were incredibly cooperative and creative in taking some of the suggestions we had, which included turning the building in a different direction and so forth. So, you know, I'm really glad to see this come forward and that they're prospering.
Anyone else have?
I was going to make a motion to amend the special use to, in RS 25 for the church addition.
Thank you. We have a motion, we have a second. Any opposed? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion's passed. Okay, item number 11 is a request from Terry Stevens of Stevens Storage for an amendment to their special use permit. And we had a little fun before the meeting about this. But if anyone would like to speak to that, Terry, would you like to talk to us? I promise you I'm really not going to veto it.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Terry Stevens, 2525 Atlanta Highway here in Athens. This is my third rodeo with these projects. When we first submitted this takeout point, we had actually never used it. Here's the reason we were asking for the amendment for a different spot. The water level was too fast and the beach wasn't big enough. So that's all we're trying to do is just move the location of the access point. And then as far as the progress report, I'm proud to say that we've just surpassed 20,000 people have floated down our rivers. We've hosted 11 cleanups and surpassed 1,000 tires. We pulled out of the middle Oconee and we started working on the North Oconee. And on the Water Trail Committee, we've, seems like after 4 years, seems like some progress is being made for Ben Burton Park in developing the public water trail. So I'm real proud of what we've done and thank you for your consideration.
We appreciate the good citizens that y'all have been to. Anyone else wish to speak to this? Okay, we'll come behind the rail, and I believe we have maybe 2 ordinances, or at least one.
Just one.
Just one.
An ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to amending the existing special use approval in the RM1 Mixed Density Residential District on the approximate 8.80 acre tract of land located at 855 Macon Highway and for other purposes.
Thank you. Mr. Hamby, this is your district. Would you like to?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I guess we'll dispense with the first one first, and I'll make a motion to approve the variance.
I'll second.
Have a motion and second. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Mr. Nisman?
If you don't mind. I've become very much aware of Mr. Stevens' operation, been down the river a number of times, watched him work hard on River Trails Committee and the Greenway Commission, and he's a real asset to this community, so I hope you'll support him.
And for clarification, we're voting on variance now, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we'll be sure. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have another.
Thank you. Oh, yes, ma'am. Just like to make a motion to approve the special use with conditions.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Okay, item number 12 is a request from Aaron Saru, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and Ben McLennan for special use of RM2 Mixed Density Residential Airport Overlay area on property known as 324 and 328 Carr Street. Proposed use is multifamily. I believe we have an ordinance, Mr. Berriman.
We do. An ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to special use approval in the RM2 AZ2 Mixed Density Residential Airport Overlay District on the approximate 0.783 acre parcel of land located at 324 and 328 Carr Street and for other purposes.
Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to us on this item? Item number 12. Okay, seeing none, we'll come behind the rail, and this is in Commissioner Wright's district.
I did have time to go on site and meet with Mr. Siro. Is that how we're going to go with that tonight? And I did do some research with it, and we saw the pictures last time of so he's got the 2 houses in the front which are going to stay, which I appreciate him renovating those and keeping that curbside look, as well as the house that we saw in the picture where the infill's going in behind. So those are all his properties, and so this is going to be a new cluster. And I agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation regarding the sidewalk variance to deny that request. I did meet with him to discuss, there is some terrain challenges there, and I'm hoping and encouraging our transportation and public works standards to be looking at some of the flexibilities that can be needed for the downhill that's going one way as well as the terrain, and that hopefully we can get to where he's building that sidewalk in a lower level that it won't be as make it less used. And I tried to remind him too, when his input was about it not being connected to other sidewalks, when actually he has 3 driveways that this is connecting to for the cluster of beds here is 23. So if for nothing else, it's going to be for the visitors and those people who are on that property, and our connectivity with our sidewalk bank hopefully can get it to where it's connected in more places. So I make a motion that we go with the Planning Commission's recommendations to deny the sidewalk variance, and then the planning recommendations regarding the special use permits approval with conditions. Am I saying that?
I think we have to have 2
Okay,
votes.
so help me out with that.
So-
Motion on the variance, second motion on the special use.
Okay, so I make a motion that we deny the sidewalk variance request.
Have a motion, seconding discussion. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed?
Okay, and then second recommendation is the planning to approve the planning recommendation regarding the special use permit with approval with conditions that are listed on page 122 of our.
Ms. Link, did you want to
Yeah, I
comment?
just have some comment. I have some mixed feelings about this project. I know there's concern about the scale and the impact on this historic neighborhood, which is not officially designated local historic. There's been a great deal of character change in recent years. But by approving this planned development, it will ensure that those 2 historic homes on the front get preserved. And as we move forward looking at our infill housing guidelines, I hope that soon we'll start seeing some guidelines that do a little better job of preserving some of these neighborhoods. These new homes can only ever really be used for student housing, and I'd like to see us embrace some more diversity in our neighborhoods and encourage the kind of development that can have, varied uses through the years and generations. So, but the fact that the historic homes are guaranteed to be preserved is my reason for supporting this.
Thank you, Ms. Link.
I wanted to add that while I was on site visiting, I did get to see, and it isn't all student housing residents that are there now, and that renovation has been done on those houses already. So it is working to that end as well.
Thank you. And before we vote, I think it's something that's worth commenting on, because you mentioned the denial of the variance on sidewalks, because we probably all hear everywhere we go about sidewalks to nowhere, where we have little short sections of sidewalk. And quite honestly, before I was mayor, I used to think the same thing. What are we doing? But eventually these sidewalks will lead someplace, because I've seen a number of places in the 5 years since I've been mayor where additional sidewalks were laid, and we ended up with a complete sidewalk area that did go from one place to another. Mitchell Bridge Road is one of those examples of that, where the sidewalks are being finished. So there is method to the madness that some people seem to see. And I just thought, we haven't talked about that publicly, and it'd be good for people to hear. So we have a motion. Did we get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this is the time now that any citizen who would like to speak to any item that was not on tonight's agenda would come forward. Please give us your name and your street address, please, and which item you're speaking to.
Which item? Or I thought this is the open comment section.
Okay. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
This is the open comment section,
Yes,
correct?
and
Okay.
anything that you'd like to speak to, yeah.
Thank you. My name is Drew Hooks. I live at 915 North Chase Street. I just wanted to talk about the living wage thing that you guys have looked at with Commissioner Harrod, and to put on the budget for next year, fiscal year 17. I really appreciate you guys looking at this and considering this and wanting to make this something that the county cares about. I just want to encourage you guys to prioritize paying a living wage to all ACC unified government employees, including those who are part-time and seasonal. You guys know just as well that I do that with prices and everything rising in Clarke County, that it's getting harder and harder to work for a minimum wage. And I hope that this step in giving people a living wage with at least $10.50 an hour will be great. We'll continue forward into the future with some sort of permanent ordinance or something like that, so that it's not something that has to be addressed every single year, but it's something that can continue on. Again, I appreciate you guys looking at this, and I hope it's something that continues for fiscal year 17 and into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hooks.
Tyler Dewey, 149 Tracy Street. Mayor and Commissioners, I'm here to speak on behalf of Bike Athens for the need for a new bike master plan, and really I'm just here laying the groundwork as we go forward with the budgeting process. I stumbled across an article from the Athens Banner Herald from 1999 that was talking about the installation of Athens' first ever bike lanes. As one of our members said at the time, it now looks like Athens will become the bicycling mecca of the South. By 2001, ACC, and you, in a general sense, maybe not you specifically, voted to approve the first bike master plan that had a planning horizon out to 2020. The bike plan, as they went into the technical details of it, examined and measured the bicycle level of service for 54 local streets, segment by segment, block by block. Of the 125 blocks they measured, 107 had a bicycle level of service of D or lower. There were more Fs than As. Indeed, only 5 street segments received a bike level of service grade of A or B. And unlike when we measured the level of service for cars, bike level of service measures rider comfort and perceived safety. So clearly there is a need for more bike infrastructure. And certainly over the years we've made a lot of progress. But when you look back at that data again today, it reveals we still have a long way to go. The bike plan identified 16 official bike routes composed of 16 shorter segments, or composed of 26 shorter street segments, so 26 pieces to the puzzle. If we include projects that are currently under construction or about to begin construction, 14 of those segments still lack bike infrastructure. Of the 26 official segments, there are 26 puzzle pieces. 6 only have a bike level of service A or B. And even that is sort of a guesstimate, as the bike level of service, to my knowledge, has not been recalculated. Transportation Public Works does what they can when they are empowered by ACC policy or their own initiative to add to the bike network independent of the bike master plan. Just today I was out on Riverbend Parkway where I got to use the new buffered bike lanes and the green lane intersection. But of course that project came up independent of the bike plan priorities. Looking back at these numbers, it reveals that 15 years after the bike plan's initial adoption, it's time to get a new one. One that reflects the sea change in bike planning and design, a plan that can provide connective, innovative, multimodal transportation choices. We still can become the bicycling destination for the whole Southeast, but let's start by getting a bike master plan that figures out how to get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dewey.
Hi, my name is Chris Dowd. I live at 245 Harris Street. So I'd like to comment about something that was said at the last work session. Commissioner Link asked if some of the LMIG funds could be used for bike lanes and sidewalks instead of street repaving. The response was that there was a backlog of streets needing to be repaved and that all of this money had to be used for street repaving for the time being. And I'm sure that's true, but I feel that there's some context missing from that exchange. So I'm sure you're aware that transportation funding has been a really hot topic lately. Our highway trust fund has been at low levels for a long time. And And there was a major adjustment to our state gas tax just last year because Georgia is also running low on money for road maintenance. I completely agree that for the time being, roads and private cars are our most important method of transportation, and there's no doubt. Almost everywhere we go, we get there in cars, and almost everything we buy got to town in a truck. It's true. But looking forward to the future, things are a lot less certain. Burning gas for transportation has been a major contributor to climate change pollution, and at the same time, energy prices have been fluctuating wildly. With young people driving less anyway, I think it's time we started to rethink the way we get around. Finding the money for road repaving won't always have to be difficult. It depends on the choices that we make as a society. If we chose to switch from private gasoline-powered vehicles to walking, biking, and public transportation, we can reduce both CO2 emissions and our need for oil, while at the same time making our communities safer and healthier. Individuals can't really do all this alone, though. We need leadership. There's a catch-22. Our cars and trucks do a lot of damage to the roads, making them very expensive to maintain and draining money away from building a cheaper and healthier alternative. We need a long-term plan to move Athens forward on alternate transportation. It's my hope that in 20 or 30 years, alternative transportation will actually come to mean driving there in cars. As long as we keep driving everywhere, our roads and highways will always be too expensive to maintain. In the long term, we'll need alternatives, and there's really no other choice.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone else?
Hey, Adam Lasla, 436 Hill Street. First, I want to start by saying thank you to Commissioners Jared Bailey and Melissa Link for speaking out when our state representatives were here for the meeting with the commission in favor of Medicaid expansion, which is super important to me personally because I am in the Medicaid gap along with several thousand people in Athens. And among the more than 10,000 people who are currently uninsured in Athens, the Georgia Budget and Public Policy Institute says that more than half of them would be covered by Medicaid expansion. And I was very glad to hear that y'all supported unanimously that this should be something that our representatives should be working on. I also know that at the end of last year, y'all agreed to write a letter that you would then give to our representatives. We've been doing a lot of lobbying at the Capitol. It's over 3 weeks into the session, and already a Medicaid expansion bill has been dropped, and it has been assigned to committee. So I was hoping that soon, hopefully, y'all could follow through on that letter, and we could get that letter, which would be a great thing for us to be able to use, saying that not only are we as Athens for Everyone supporting this, but our mayor and commission are unanimously behind this, representing Athens as a whole as well. I think that would strengthen our argument, and we'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim Denson, 290 Midway Road. I first want to second what Adam said, that we've talked to a few allies at the Capitol, and they've actually said that if that letter was in existence, that could really be something that could help the argument there. So that's actually come from some of the representatives and other groups working. Next, I want to thank you guys for passing the Go Transit grant. We had somebody who was very excited to come and speak to you about that, so I'm sorry nobody did, but thank you for doing that, and I hope that you guys did get some fantastic input via email. And hopefully going forward, the input could go into all of our capital purchasing for buses going forward. If we think this is a good idea and we want to invest in it now with this grant, then I would hope that all future bus purchases, we would agree, should also still be hybrid no matter where this money is coming from. The savings is there if we do it. I don't have the numbers where we're at now, but I'm sure Butch can get them for you. Also on public input, on public transit, we have public input sessions coming up on February 9th and March 1st, happening at the Multimodal Center. I feel the word is not going to get out there enough. I've been at these public input sessions before, and the attendance is not what I would wish it to be. Right now, since we lack having any kind of citizen panel to actually help public transit move forward, the operations move forward, that makes these input sessions even more integral until we get some kind of citizen committee put back in place, as it should be. These input sessions are going to be part of the public transit study that's going on right now, which I'm very excited about, and Athens for Everyone is very excited about. But I don't think that we should be willing to strictly rely on that study for doing anything. I know we could fall into a manner of saying, well, let's wait for the study before we do anything on public transit. But if we do that, we might not do anything because we have a mountain of studies we've done on different topics that nothing has ever been acted on. But we still need to move forward and improve our public transit system. And specifically, one of the issues that we will be working on moving forward is trying to get the bus to extend down US 29 out to the county line there. Right now we have Department of Driver Services. People are getting their driver's license. They're probably driving there illegally to get that driver's license. It's not on the bus line. We have a veterans clinic at the end of that line. It's not on the bus line. We have veterans who have actually reached out to us and volunteers who help them, who have told us we have trouble getting there. We need help. So it would help that. Plus, there's a number of communities there, low-income communities, and other people that have issues and problems trying to get around town, such as the Pine Woods community, who could really, really use this. And I don't think it's fair for any of those groups, those populations there, to put it off and say we have to wait for the results of a study. Honestly, you can just go and talk to the people who rely on any of those services or live in those communities. You don't need a study to know that they need that bus. But we'd look forward to working with you to try to get that bus extended those 2.3 miles, and I appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Denson. Anyone else?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm here to speak this evening on Alan Reddish's last mayor and commission meeting. My name is Kathy Horde. I live at 248 Springdale Street. I had the opportunity to serve as an elected representative in our local government for almost 20 years, retiring in 2014. During my years of service, I was blessed to work with many talented individuals who are true public servants, but none with a greater sense of community, stronger work ethic, or concern for people than Alan Reddish. During Alan's term as county manager, he successfully shepherded a myriad of projects to completion, large and small, that will benefit our community for generations to come. A few of these include Caterpillar. Alan worked tirelessly behind the scenes with a small, diverse team of individuals to include Oconee County partners to bring this major employer to Athens, and what a success it has been. He helped successfully deal with the worst drought in Athens and our state. In fact, it was the worst we had experienced in modern times. And to that end, he helped update our water reclamation facilities and continued cooperation with our partners in the Bear Creek Reservoir. Ellen helped manage the successful implementation of 2 SPLOST initiatives to include projects as diverse as our new jail and additions to our Classic Center. He fostered improved relations and partnerships with the University of Georgia, the Chamber of Commerce, and other important entities. Alan worked diligently to ensure that the citizens of Athens have an outstanding workforce. He served as a role model for our government and required those who served our citizens to do so with integrity and a spirit of service. Conversely, he worked hard to ensure fair wages and benefit accrued to our employees. Alan worked with mayor and commissioners on creating no-fat budgets, which provide essential services to our citizens in the most economical way possible. Of particular note is the Employee Wellness Program, which has resulted in a healthier workforce and reaped huge savings for our citizenry. During Alan's tenure, the system of distributing federal dollars afforded to our community was revamped, and these funds are now utilized in a manner to better benefit a diverse group of programs and citizenry. Alan's door and phone line were always open to all on any issue. I recall an incident in which, as a commissioner, I received a call from an elderly volunteer at our county's animal control facility to ask that a horribly abused dog with essentially no fur and poor health be given an extra time for adoption. With Allen's managerial time extension, a home was ultimately found, and the dog lived out his days in a wonderful home in Winterville, sporting hand-knitted sweaters. Allen, thank you for serving our community so well during your time as our manager. Our community is simply a better place because you did. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Howard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My name is Russell Edwards. I live at 400 Duncan Springs Road. Last Thursday, the Clarke County Democratic Committee had their monthly meeting and unanimously passed a resolution encouraging this body to pass a living wage ordinance to ensure that we pay all of our employees, part-time and full-time, at the very least, a living wage. So I hope with that, y'all can take that encouragement and hopefully act on it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Anyone else wish to speak?
Hello, my name is Colleen McLaughlin. I am the solar campaign organizer for Environment Georgia. I actually live in Decatur, Georgia, but I've been working here for the past few months on the project you might have heard about, Solarize Athens. If you haven't, it's bulk purchase of solar. Residents and businesses in Athens are able to go solar for less. And you might have seen in the Banner Herald this morning that Madam Mayor joined me yesterday at the residence of the very first resident of Athens that signed a contract under Solarize Athens, and there are now solar panels on his roof. And we are thrilled that this program is going so well. We intend to triple the amount of solar energy in Athens-Clarke County. However, the program ends in March, and as I've spoken with all of you, the last thing we want to see is for all of this enthusiasm and momentum around solar energy to end once the Solarize program does. And as I've talked with pretty much all of you, that's why we want to see some county government action to allow for an increased capacity of solar energy. And I just want to thank you all for listening to me. I know I keep bugging all of you about this, but I really do think that Athens-Clarke County is the perfect place for solar energy. There's so much public support for it. And I look forward to getting something on the agenda soon that addresses increasing solar energy in Athens-Clarke County. Thank you.
Colleen, I don't usually talk to people at the podium, but have you got any of your brochures with you?
Yes, I do.
Would you leave some? Because I just mailed my last one to someone that I talked to today that was interested. And the owner of the cows that we heard so loud and clear is interested.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah,
out
I
on that same
absolutely will.
street. So,
Thank you.
anyone else?
James Moy, 320 South Pope Street. A few years ago on a paddling trip with the Georgia River Network, someone shared a piece of history with me that changed completely the way that I see the landscapes of my home state. They told me that before the cotton era in Georgia, the rivers of the Piedmont ran crystal clear over a rock cobble bottom. Anyone who's seen the Oconee now knows this is no longer the case. This may not have come as a surprise to many of you, but it was news to me, and imagining the Oconee free of its heavy sediment load, I found myself mourning the loss of this condition, having never even seen it. The ignorance, greed, and lack of foresight that caused this pollution frustrate me. I feel like our forefathers have robbed me of a piece of the city's beauty, and I worry that I'm participating in further degrading the quality of our rivers for future generations. Though there is little hope of cleaning all the silt from the Oconee in our lifetimes, I propose a more modest goal of taking active steps to reduce the amount of trash that is entering our waterways. In particular, plastic waste is accumulating along the banks as well as in our storm drains by the ton every year. It is both an economic and an aesthetic burden, and it's largely avoidable, as most plastic waste originates from single-use packaging like plastic bags that have escaped the waste stream or been improperly discarded. Prevention is the best medicine, as they say. Most single-use containers like plastic bags and water bottles have simple reusable alternatives, and I believe that we should be encouraging their use. I suggest that we take action by implementing a fee on plastic bags to discourage their use when unnecessary and generate revenue that could potentially go towards environmental remediation. The small fee would protect our waterways and put Athens-Clarke County among the many other places nationwide that are making the health of their environment a priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moy. Anyone else?
Hello, Samantha Eberhard, 195 Kingswood Drive. Also following up with what James had mentioned. So I've lived in Athens, Georgia my entire life, and I feel really deeply connected to this town and to the people that reside in it. And I'm here today to speak about the introduction of a plastic bag fee here in Athens-Clarke County. I know that many people have voiced their concerns and disagreements on this issue, but I think that it's a very important matter to start seriously thinking about. Since these single-use plastic bags are extremely detrimental not only to the environment, but also to human health, to animals, and to the oceans. So plastic bags do not biodegrade, rather they photodegrade and break down into smaller and smaller pieces. So once a plastic bag gets into our environment, it's there forever and can take hundreds or even thousands of years to break down. So one great example of a district that has successfully enacted a 5-cent fee on plastic bags is Washington, D.C., and they enacted that in 2010. Shortly after this, they noticed a drastic decrease in the quantity of plastic bags being used, and therefore a cleaner environment around them. With this 5-cent fee, the business would retain a portion of the fee to offset any costs for implementation and actually saving money by having to buy less plastic bags, and in addition to making a profit from the fee itself. Then the remaining portion of the fee would go towards a local environmental program or organization. For instance, in D.C., the portion of the bag fee went to the Anacostia River Cleanup and Protection Fund. And so here in Athens, it could go towards, for example, an Oconee River cleanup, for instance. And so one might say, well, wouldn't a plastic bag fee hurt the low-income communities? And my answer would be no for this. If an individual or family were on food stamps, EBT, or WIC, they would be exempt from this bag fee. And in addition, during the implementation period, reusable bags would be distributed to low-income areas and around the community to those who could not afford to buy them themselves. So I think Athens could set a great example in Georgia and in the Southeast by implementing a 5-cent plastic bag fee. Numerous cities, states, and countries around the world have enacted plastic bag legislation, whether a mere 5-cent fee, a 10-cent fee, or even a plastic bag ban. And they have all seen tremendous successes. And Athens, Georgia should be the next to join the movement. So I, along with many others here in the Athens community, would love to see this issue set on the agenda so that it can be talked about in more depth by the Mayor and Commission and hopefully enacted into legislation in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eberhard. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we're going to come behind the counter. And this is the time that our commissioners get to speak. And the mayor gets the pleasure of being the first to speak on this. And tonight, I would like, well, one of the things I would like to congratulate Colleen on the solar project, because I think it's going to go very well. And hopefully the word will spread tonight more because of your being here. But the only thing that I have on my agenda tonight is to publicly say goodbye to Mr. Alan Reddish. This is my 37th year in elected office, so I've worked with a number of county managers and assistants to commissioners and assistants to mayors under different titles, but did some of the same kind of work. And Alan, I think you are as good as they come. Alan has been here 15 years. I've only been the mayor for 6, but I was the tax commissioner when he came in, and he was the first manager in our community to include the constitutional officers in his regular meetings with your staff. And our offices were affected by things that were talked about, and I just broke my own rule, I'm sorry. But in the time before I was mayor, because the constitutional officers were included, we developed a relationship of mutual respect and trust with each other, and we also had quarterly meetings, which was the first, and I think those are still going on. I'm expecting our new manager to do the same thing because I think it is such a valuable thing. Alan, you've had a long and fruitful career with this community. It couldn't be expressed much better than Kathy Hord did a few minutes ago, and thank you, Kathy, for that. But you know, I understand. I have a daughter who's a city manager in Tybee Island, And I know, because of going to meetings, that very few managers have a 15-year life with any community. So that's quite an accomplishment. I don't know whether it's because you're so smart or because you're maybe not quite so smart. But you've put up with a lot of different personalities and a lot of headaches, but you've also accomplished a lot of wonderful things for our community. And when some of our employees retire from the county, we have an award that we give them that's an Athena Award that I get the pleasure of presenting, and I always quote that part of that Athena mandate from Athens, Greece, to their citizens to leave the community better than they found it. And Alan, we can certainly say that about you. And I don't want to embarrass your sweet wife, Carol. This is her first commission meeting that she's ever attended in all these years. But thank you for sharing your husband with us, because I know there were many nights that you had family times that you would like for him to have been at home, and he was sitting up here, or at many other meetings he attended. I'm sorry to lose you, but I'm so happy that you're leaving while you're healthy and while you have your family. You've got new grandchildren coming up, best part of anybody's life, and I hope you have a really long and happy retirement. And I would like to mention one other person that's leaving us that's been here a while, and I know it's going to embarrass her. It's one of our staff attorneys, Amy Gellens. This will be her last week with us, too. And she's sat in this chair here in Bill's place many times, and I have very trustingly signed many documents that were this thick that there's no way I could have read through all of them because Amy had already read through them. So thank you for all the work you've done for us, Amy. And so now I'll see if our manager, Mr. Reddish, would have anything he'd like to say to us before he leaves us.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. I do. And as my public relations agent, Kathy Hord, noted, this is my last meeting, but the comments I want to make, I really don't want it to be goodbye comments. I actually got 3 more days to work, and we got a reception next week, so I'm not going just yet. So they're not so much goodbye statements as I want to share some thank you statements. I have observed over the years, being a city or county manager in 3 governments and certainly talking to a lot of them over the years, that really success that managers have does not come unless there is a relationship of respect and trust between that manager and the elected officials they serve. In the 15 years that I've been here, I have worked with 29 elected officials. Commissioner Sims is the only one who's been here since I came. So it's been he and 28 different folks over those 15 years. And I can honestly say, with only a very rare and few exceptions, I have always felt like those elected officials have been very respectful of what I do and have demonstrated the trust that I've tried to offer to them over those 15 years. So I want to say thank you for that. In return for that, I've also tried to demonstrate my respect for you and most particularly the office that you hold. I think we can all agree that elected officials and the offices that they hold are the foundations of our democracy. And it's always concerned me that when we show lack of respect for the people who serve in those offices and for the offices themselves, then we diminish the democracy that we find to be so important. So I want to thank you for that you've shown to me, and I hope I have shown it back to you in those difficult times, even when sometimes we disagreed on issues. The other thing that I want to say is I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be a part of some very important issues within this community. Managers do want to make a difference where they are, and you've allowed me to be a part of your team, and I think together, you and many other elected officials that I've worked for, we have done some important things for this community, and I appreciate you allowing me to be a part of that for this period of time. The other thing that I want to admit to is, yes, I have made some mistakes. And when I have made those, again, almost without exception, I have seen understanding expressed to me when that happened. And I've tried to learn from those. I've tried not to repeat them, and I certainly tried not to embarrass you when I have made those mistakes. So again, I want to say thank you for that understanding. You know, this government, as a unified government, just recently celebrated its anniversary of 25 years. I am very proud to be the longest-serving manager of this unified government, and certainly to have served for 15 years. That's very important. That will always be a very important part of my career. This is a great organization, a wonderful community, and most importantly, I am very thankful to you for allowing me to close out my professional career of 15 years here in this community with you. It not only has been a very challenging place to work, it's been a very rewarding place to work, and certainly has changed who I am over these 15 years. So I look forward to continuing to be a part of the community. We don't have any plans to leave anytime soon, and I look forward to engaging with you and other things outside of government after I retire. I certainly wish you the best as you continue to serve in your elected role and serve those people, those citizens that have elected you. It is an important task, and it's one of the challenges nowadays to find good folks who want to serve in elected positions, and I commend you for doing so. So once again, thank you for a great 15 years. It has been a wonderful experience.
Mr. Behrman, would you like to say anything?
Thank Alan for all of his great service and wish him the best of luck in retirement.
Thank you. Ms. Maddox.
I would also like to say, Alan, for the last 6 years, it's been a pleasure learning from you and working with you. Good luck.
Thank you. And we'll hear from our commissioners, and I'm trying to think how we've never started before, and I'm going to start with Mr. Sims and work our way around.
As that one that you've worked with all this time, no, really, I want to say thank you, Alan, for all you've done. You know, Alan, I once applied for this job once before he actually got the job. And I was a supporter of him even then. He didn't get the job, but, you know, another bite at the apple, he got it. And I'm truly thankful for what he's done. One of the things that Alan said when he got the job is he says, if my picture's in the paper more than the commissioners are, then I'm not doing my job. You know, because I don't need to, you know, his job has always been to be in the background to make things happen, and he has done that. You know, he is truly the professional. And I thank him for being that person. Another thing I learned about Alan is, you know, he's a pretty smart fellow. Because usually those administrators don't stay in their positions more than usual, an average of 5 to 6 years, but he's been here 15. Well, when he got to number 9, and the pension fund that he was in was real rocky, he found out that he, you know, being on the pension board serving with me, that I've served on for the last 20 years, that Clarke County has a pretty good pension program. And he said, you know, I'm going to join your program because mine sucks. and he did. I mean, you know, he was taking the chance because he hadn't gotten, and you have to be tenured. You got to get 10 years in. He says, well, I don't have 9 years, but I think I'm going to be good enough to stay here at least till I get tenured. And he did. And that's a tribute to, again, Alan, too, with the pension board. You know, like I said, I serve as the chair, but we ask a lot of questions. We have a lot of issues. But he has truly been that visionary that sees beyond where we're trying to go. And again, I can't say thank you enough for all that you've done. And like I say, I'm glad that I've had the opportunity to say that you and I worked together for 15 years. And I wish you the very best.
Ms. Dickerson.
Well, I actually was also here when Alan was hired as an employee, and I worked under the 2 previous managers. And although I didn't have a lot of opportunity to work directly with Alan because the way things were structured, I did, you know, observe him from a distance and, you know, work as an assistant director and had the opportunity to go to the meetings that a lot of the department directors went to, and got to see how he ran things and came to commission meetings, a lot of commission meetings during those years. And I won't take it personally that he's decided to leave now that I've come on board, so since I came back. But I have to say, of the managers I worked for, and of course the other two I worked for were only for 4 years apiece. But I can certainly say without a doubt that Alan certainly commanded the respect of all the department directors because of the way he treated them, and I think that speaks highly of him. So I wish you the best in the future.
Mr. Harrod.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I'll continue with the, it's not really a roasting because we're all being far too polite here. But I'd just like to, I'm sorry? We'll be here all night if I do that. But I would also just like to thank Alan for his service. You know, he's helped me a lot on a number of different issues, and through being able to help me has allowed me to help my constituents. I've always appreciated being able to call Alan early in the morning, very late at night, on weekends when he's been on vacation, and he's been able to help me address in a timely manner issues that have come up that don't come up in the regular 8 to 5 Monday through Friday time schedule that we like to think that problems and issues would present themselves. So thank you for me personally, also on behalf of my constituents that you have helped me serve. I appreciate everything you've done for the community, and I think this is a far better community for you having been the county manager. Thank you.
Ms. Bell.
Are you sure you want me to say anything, Alan? When I first knew that first night we met here after he announced he was going to retire, I came to him with a funny smile on my face and I said, "Are you sure you're not retiring because of these 3 additions to the commission?" He never answered me. Truly, though, this is a statement. When I first knew that I was going to be running for this seat, and he came back, and when he said he was going to retire, I said to him, if he had announced his retirement after I announced I was going to run for a seat, I would have withdrawn my name, because I knew that was a part of my agreement to myself to run, that I knew that I had known Alan long enough, and I knew that this would work fine, and I hope that I've done my part, because I certainly know he's done his part. And thank you for some wonderful months. Now, as of tomorrow, and all of y'all know the passion in my heart and soul has been for the 5 Points area, we start our parking study tomorrow. I am so excited.
Ms. Handy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'll dispense with the politeness for just a moment, but
well, I'm not surprised.
Well, in this, you know, I've been at this job for about 7 years now, and I think maybe the first year into the job, or into the service rather, I called Cynthia, as I normally would do, Alan's administrative assistant, and asked to speak to Alan. And Cynthia said he wasn't in the office, but you could try him on his cell phone, which I normally wouldn't do. And I said, well, I don't want to bother him on his cell phone. And I think I remember her saying, well, he's not really doing anything. And I said, well, that's typical. But so anyway, I called him on his cell phone, and it took a while for him to answer. And I said, hey, Alan, what you got going on? And he said, well, I saw it was you calling, and I'm actually laying here on a gurney. So I had to decide, do I want to answer the phone, or do I want to go ahead and tell this man to take me back here to get this colonoscopy that I'm about to get? So I don't know about the rest of y'all, but at least I rank higher than a colonoscopy. And I don't know at what point that ended, but I'm sure it came to some point, because Commissioner Horde was here, and we would when I was super district and worked with other commissioners, we would visit, and after I was not super district, we'd sort of plot a strategy to try to do some things for Athens and for our constituents, and we'd plot a strategy to figure out how to get it done. And the first stop was always to go visit with Alan. And a lot of times it was, good cop, bad cop routine, or the brains or the muscle. Kathy, of course, was the brains in this, but we'd go and talk to Alan about whatever issue it was, and this happened several times, whatever the issue was, and we'd always leave out of there sort of cussing Alan, just going, he didn't even listen to us. What is going on here? He didn't even listen to us. And then a few minutes after stewing down, one of us would eventually say, but he really made a lot of sense in telling us no. So, and that happened a few times, and we'd reverse roles a little bit. I'd try to be the good cop or the brains, and it still wouldn't work, and Kathy would come out mad at me going, you just weren't any good at that at all. And so, but at any rate, Manager Reddish, we do appreciate your service. You did tell us no several times, and that's probably good for Athens and the community, but that was your role. And I know you respected our role in trying to get some things done and working with the commission, but you have you are leaving Athens a better place, and I have learned a lot from you. I still don't know how you stay so patient of all things, but at any rate, I'm trying to emulate that a little bit more these days. Some days it works, some days it doesn't, but I appreciate what you've done for Athens and this commission.
Ms. Neesmith?
I'm not going to wax on forever like my colleague over here, but that's okay. He said it well. But I do want to echo Kathy's recommendation of Manager Reddish. Alan is a true public servant with values and skills that have served our citizens and government very well, and he will certainly be missed. I also want to thank Blaine Williams and the staff at Transportation and Public Works for the work they're doing in finding alternatives for solving issues related to a new business opportunity on Atlanta Highway. I'm optimistic that their efforts will have good results, and I really appreciate it. I also, on another subject, want to let every citizen know that despite what you have heard or read, Athens-Clarke County Solid Waste and its recycling contractor continue to accept and recycle glass. We are continuing, let me say it again, put your glass in your recycling bin because we will take it. And I also want to point out to homeowners and commercial and industrial building owners that opportunity about solarization, solar power. You can collectively purchase at big discounts affordable solar power systems on your buildings. Now, to get to this, if you Google search for Solarize Athens, you'll find the information. You'll find the website. This opportunity is only available for another 58 days. Already, Solarize Athens has committed residential solar power of over 31 kilowatts of energy. Using that website, you can easily request an evaluation of your property for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm glad to hear that Manager Reddish is planning to stay in the community. I'm wondering if, now that he's retiring, if we can raise his taxes. Can we do that? Anyway, I'm not going to go on and on like everyone else has. He certainly deserves all the praise he's gotten, but I would like to say that, Alan, you have my respect and my thanks.
See, when you go on and on, that makes you ahead of a colonoscopy.
I too want to thank Manager Reddish. I appreciate your public demeanor with us and your comments like, what I will tell you. I'll never forget it, and I use it more often than I catch myself doing that. But I also appreciate your insights and your help that you've given me that haven't been in the public forum, and I appreciate that. And I wish you the best, and I know you'll have a great next step.
I also want to add my thanks to Alan, particularly thanks for all your patience with me. And we'll definitely miss you, and I'll certainly miss those sideways looks you give me from time to time. And I also want to thank the folks who came to the podium to address a whole bunch of issues. Thanks, Jerry and Colleen, for talking about the Solarize program. I had my site visit yesterday. My husband and I plan on getting some solar panels on our house, and we're super excited about that. And I hope that a lot of folks in the community will take advantage of it. and that some businesses will take advantage of it. The tax breaks are really good, and the group buy brings the rates way down. And, you know, for some larger systems, they can end up paying for themselves in just a few years. And, you know, the word is that electric rates are probably only going to go up. They're pretty low right now, but they're only going to go up. So this, you know, is looking ahead. Anybody that can take part of the program looks like they can save a lot of money in the future. And a bunch of other issues that folks brought up. We are having our final retreat about our goals and objectives next Wednesday, February 10th. I believe it starts at 1:30 in the Classic Center. I don't think the room has been set yet, but the word will get out. There should be a public notification about that. And we'll be talking about some specifics, stuff like bike master plan and a living wage, a plastic bag fee definitely is something that came up. And one thing that I would like to see is an alternative transportation committee. You know, I feel like and most communities of our size have these kind of committees or boards that weigh in on transportation projects and are able to give a broader citizen perspective on projects and get a little innovative and creative with projects. It's not always easy to make accommodations for bikes, but there are creative ways, you know, to think outside the box and come up with the best case scenario. And I feel like if we had our citizens more intimately involved in that process, that we would get the best case scenario. And the Medicaid expansion, I believe we did vote on that. We voted to ask our local representatives to, well, convey our support to our local representatives for Medicaid expansion. But we did vote that we would like to send a letter as well, and it could be helpful if we were able to convey that to support to other representatives, especially those on the committees that are discussing a bill to expand Medicaid. And it could mean a lot for our community and a lot for literally hundreds of thousands of citizens across the state. And I also want to remind folks that, well, as we speak, there's a documentary playing on GPB called Old South, and it's about Athens. It documents some changes to one of our local in-town neighborhoods, the Hancock neighborhood, as a fraternity house moved in about 10 or so years ago. And we recently had a presentation on a workforce housing study, and I sat on a panel last night discussing workforce and affordable housing issues. And, you know, it's pretty clear that we have something of a crisis in our community, especially in our in-town neighborhoods. And I hope that we'll be having some serious discussions about what we can do in the near term. I know there are committees out there that are going to be discussing broader policy, but in the near term, you know, we kind of have to stop the bleeding. And one of the big recommendations that came out of that study is that we need to put a halt to the large-scale, multifamily, student-oriented housing. And over and over again, I've called for a moratorium on downtown. And you know, the culture that has been invited downtown is kind of homogenized culture. And I actually had a chance to experience it firsthand. I went out on the town Saturday night with some young lady friends and got to see firsthand how things have changed in the decade or so since I've been out and on the scene, and I look forward to sharing some of those observations with management and the attorney's office and the chief of police. We've got some cold, hard truths to face in our community, and I hope that we can get on them sooner rather than later. Mr. Gertz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's an interesting phenomenon becoming an elected official. You know, if you put yourself in the position of saying enough of the favored things in enough of the right places, you find yourself elected. And then you become inaugurated, and you actually have to make some decisions. And I could imagine any number of ways in which somebody might come into that role. I could imagine circumstances in which people would come into that role and simply have those professional staff people sort of at arm's length. But that's not what I found when I came into office in Athens-Clarke County. I found a manager in Alan Reddish that wanted to pull me in and provide me with more information rather than less. that when we disagreed, wanted to deepen my understanding. When we agreed, wanted to sort of expand the reasons why we might agree and the direction we might go. And so I'm forever grateful for this opportunity over the last decade that I've been in this seat to have Alan at the helm of this government, because I've learned so much. And I believe that I and all of us around this room have done a better job because of Alan's presence. And I also want to note that Alan is a great example of the reality that the lives that we touch go far beyond those that we know and understand. I'm not going to be here next Tuesday for Alan's retirement, but I want to say in front of all of you that this last decade was a time when I went from being a public classroom teacher to being an educational administrator. And no one did I think of more as I made plans and procedures and protocols for myself and the staff that worked with me than Alan. And so every time you see a teenager on a street corner in town, or going through the drive-through, or working at the drive-through, Alan, you can know that you've had an impact on these people who you've never met. Thank you dearly for that. And I'm looking forward to many years being able to pick your brain and learn from your wisdom over your beverage of choice. So, Madam Mayor, I move for adjournment.
Before we adjourn.
And move into executive session.
Thank you. Okay. Folks, thank you for joining us, and we're going into executive session, so we need to have the room cleared.
Would you vote on that, please?
Oh, all in favor of going into executive session?
Aye.
Any opposed?